Greetings all, welcome to Everything Borrowed, where we sit down to share stories and have conversations with entrepreneurs to artists and everyone in between. Today's episode is powered by Blake's Hard Cider, 100% fresh pressed, all natural and gluten-free, straight from our family's 75-year-old farm in Southeast Michigan. Find us in your local grocer or have Blake's direct ship to your home by visiting blakestore.com. Use promo code EverythingBorrowed to receive 10% off your first order. Must be 21 years of age. Please enjoy mindfully. What's up, y'all? Today's episode, we sit down with Major General Darren Werner, the Commanding General of the U.S. Army Tank-automotive and Armament Command. TACOM is the headquarters for all of the manufacturing and readiness of the ground units inside the U.S. Army. We discuss what it takes to command thousands of people worldwide and manage a $30 billion budget annually. Major General Darren Werner is a true leader, hero, and we greatly appreciate the time he had to give us.
Andrew.
Brigadier General Werner, how are you?
I'm doing great, thanks. It's a pleasure to meet you.
Yeah, pleasure to meet you too. Thank you so much for coming on with us today.
Yeah, hey, this is an honor to be able to meet Andrew from Blake's.
Well, the honor's all mine, and this podcast has been a lot about leadership. It's been a lot about business, entrepreneurial endeavors, but there's so many parallels from a productivity standpoint, from a leadership standpoint, that I see in the military that I am fascinated and excited to pick your brain today on. So, for those of us in the civilian world, you're the commanding general of the U.S. Army Tank-automotive and Armaments Command. And for to put it in layman's terms, what does that fully entail?
Yeah, so we're commonly referred to as TACOM, and for those that live in the area, you probably have heard of Detroit Arsenal, and you've heard of TACOM, and I have relatives that live up north, up in the Thumb, and they can remember when the Detroit Arsenal and TACOM had different names. But the bottom line is the U.S. Army Tank-automotive and Armaments Command is the headquarters for all of the manufacturing and readiness of all of the ground vehicles inside the Army. So we work with the acquisition side of the Army. We don't do acquisition. We don't buy stuff. We just work on, once we've acquired it and it's in our inventory, we work on making sure we have repair parts, making sure that we have systems to ensure that we can maintain the equipment, and basically end-to-end requirements for that equipment. So we are sometimes referred to as a life cycle management command, because we manage that once it's been acquired. You take a M1 Abrams tank, the most recognizable piece of equipment on Earth.
Of course.
Yeah, you could take that, and from the time it's manufactured all the way through until it's divested and no longer in our inventory, we manage the life cycle of that, the readiness and the maintenance.
Well, that's fascinating. One of the things in kind of trying to understand TACOM a little bit more, it seems like it's a big study on the largest scale, in the largest military, most sophisticated military in the world. It's a big supply chain process, and it's a big, asset and inventory, process. And, there's a lot of parallels there as we work in the business world. We talk about manufacturing, we talk about supply chain, lean manufacturing, lean supply chain. And one of the questions that I had for you was, leading, in what ways is the military the same as leading in the business, and what way is the military different than the civilian world? As in, the processes that you deploy or implore to have effective use of assets and of team members, in the military, and what are some things that could be parlayed from a military standpoint into the business world? Do you see?
Yeah, that's a great question. I look at it from 2 points of view. So I've been in the Army for over 30 years, and I've worked mostly in the field Army, right? So out there in the dirt with soldiers, providing the final tactical mile of supply, right? So fuel, water, whatever it is, at the forward edge of the battlefield. That's where I've spent a majority of my career. Shifting to this position, that time spent working directly with soldiers and understanding how people operate has been very helpful in being able to make a transition into more of the organic industrial base, as we call our operation, working in that business realm. I think there's the key element to all of it is people and how you treat people, right? And I think at the heart of everything, how you treat people is the most important part of leadership. Just characteristics, being a good listener, understanding the environment from the points of view of many. That's so incredibly important. Understanding what the person out there who's digging a trench or putting materials together at a factory, or an item manager. We have hundreds of item managers here at Detroit Arsenal that manage individual parts and pieces to every system that we have. Understanding their point of view and listening to hear, because from different levels of leadership, you don't always have the real gut feeling of what's going on. And I'm a big fan of listening, but I've been accused of talking a lot too. So that's always something you always have to self-assess. You have to look at how you do things. Start with yourself first. Assess where you could do better, and then from there you move out, and then you try to help your teammates out to make them do better. But it is about listening. It's about being able to self-assess and acknowledge and take feedback. I don't know if you watched any football yesterday, but I watched Tom Brady. And one thing that if I had to, I don't know him. Obviously, I don't know him personally, even though he played football at University of Michigan.
He's a Michigan man as well. Yep.
But I don't know him. But I could tell you that when you see him interacting with his wide receivers, he's not just talking, he's listening. It's communication going on, and I think that's powerful. To just the little clips you see on television of a professional athlete who demonstrates clearly that it's about a team. It's about being part of a team, not being the leader of the team, but being part of the team. I think that's awesome.
One of the things I've always been super interested in is and as you study, different cultures, different countries, is certain countries have a commitment to serve in the military, which I think it kind of puts the whole country in the spirit of service. And one of the things I've always respected, to the men and women, respected about the men and women serving, in our armed forces is, they are serving a greater purpose, a greater good. You see, some of the climate that we're in our own country. And it always makes me think that, subscribing to something beyond yourself, beyond your own individual interests, is something that would do us all well. So when you decided to get into the military, what brought you to this place, and what interested you in getting involved? Because I look back at my life, and I've had a great, blessed life in entrepreneurship, but part of me is remiss that I didn't kind of have that experience of bonding, brotherhood, sisterhood, family in service of something larger. And I'm not so sure if it wouldn't be a bad philosophy to have, a more, suggested, tenure for all people, going into college, or at least, maybe making it a part of, a school forgiveness program. There's been a few things I've seen as far as, being proposed out there, but what are your thoughts on what brought you to the military in the first place?
Yeah, so, I grew up north in a little town called Mayville, just a little crossroad town. And, not too far, a little bit further north than where you are. And my parents set the, obviously, they kind of set the foundation for what you believe is right and wrong, and kind of give you that foundation. So my parents established my foundation of what was right and wrong. I came from a family where my grandfather served in World War I. My father served in World War II. Now they didn't elect to come in the Army. They were drafted, but they joined the military as draftees because they had to serve. They didn't dodge the draft. They took the responsibility, and they went to war. My oldest brother was drafted during the Vietnam era. I have two uncles that fought in the Korean War. So, even though they were all drafted into the Army, for me, I saw service in the Army as when I was an 18-year-old kid, still in high school, looking at what I was going to do next. I looked at it as an opportunity not only to serve our country, and really, frankly, at 18, it was more about the latter. I'll tell you, as a 54-year-old, I'll tell you that is, it was about serving my country. But if I had turned back the clock and when I was 18, it was about figuring out a way to get to college, right? It was figuring out how I could go to college and pay for the bill and get a college education. Now 30 some years later, yeah, I went to college, but really what college did for me was it kept me in the military. It allowed me to become an officer in the Army. It allowed me to spend several years learning what it meant to serve our nation, to serve and protect the Constitution, which is so important. I have on my desk a copy of the Constitution. I think there's probably people in our nation that have never read the Constitution.
Isn't that crazy?
I open it up every now and then and just look through it to remind myself why I'm here. What am I doing? To support and defend the Constitution of the United States. And that's what it's all about. And so, after being in the military for a little while, I know I came in for one reason, get myself into the military, get a way to get some college under my belt, and then move on. But I got here, and there's probably about a 10-year period of time when I was just excited about when I left the military. And then there was a day when that just all shifted, when I realized that, serving our nation is really, really rewarding. It feels good to be able to, say that I've contributed to the defense of our nation. I really have appreciated the opportunities I've had. The military has given me an opportunity to, not only me personally, to travel the entire world. I've been in a lot of places, but also, as I've aged and grown as a human, I've also picked up a few folks that I've taken with me. I've been married for over 20 years to a wonderful woman who I met because of the military. I have two children who know nothing but what it's like to be a military brat, if you will. Who've been all over the world, who've grown, and in a lot of ways have become better people just because of the experience they've had in the military. Now, both of them have said they don't want to join the military because they've already served, and frankly, they
That's
have.
fair. Yeah.
Yeah, they've done it all, and so that's kind of my take.
Yeah. Well, you talk about your travels across the world, and not everyone gets to kind of come back as to their home state, but also in their home state as, I think, the first Brigadier General that's actually from their state that they're serving in, at least here in Michigan. And that has to be quite a quite an honor and quite exciting for you to kind of come back to your roots. And what's the journey been like for you? You're the first Brigadier General that I've ever had the pleasure of talking to, and it's a complete honor. But you started out just like everyone else. Did you start out on a track? Was the goal to become a Brigadier General or even further, or is it something that through hard work, discipline, and a little bit of luck, you found yourself here in this position?
Yeah, you got it. I mean, that's really what it boils down to, right? So I'm probably not that much different than you. I grew up in a small town. My mom and dad had businesses. We have 7 kids in my family. I was the youngest of 7. We all worked in the businesses. It was, we contributed to the family all the way up until I went to college and actually joined the Michigan National Guard before I even finished high school. But the whole concept of coming back to Michigan after being away for as long as I have has been just an incredible honor. The one thing I'll tell you that is really I don't like, and that is the fact that I came back with a pandemic in place, right? So I moved from my last duty station here during a pandemic. And I've not had my entire workforce working at the Detroit Arsenal or across any of my depots or arsenals across the United States because of COVID. We do telework and things like that, and I really look forward to being able to get everybody back. So at least we can have some camaraderie going on more than just across the airwaves here.
Well, I want to talk to you a little bit about that. We've all been affected by this pandemic in many different ways, and my it might be true, it might be just my assumption, but I kind of had this feeling that the Army is better equipped than most civilian businesses to be able to handle telecommunications and things of that nature. But that being said, what have the challenges been? It might be just from a morality standpoint, getting people to feel a part of things. What's been the biggest challenge of you navigating in this more remote workspace? I know you're dealing with armaments and the armies across our entire country and across the world. So I know this isn't foreign to you, but I have to imagine from a team building standpoint, from a leadership, not being able to motivate in person, some of that's been a challenge. So what are some of the things that the Army does or that you've tried to employ to try to bring back that teamwork?
Yeah, so it's somewhat of a challenge, but you know what, we adapt really well. That's one thing you can take away. I think I was just talking to Nick a minute ago, and we were talking about how you can find a silver lining in just about everything. And even though the pandemic is horrible and it's a terrible situation that we have across our nation, across the world, the one good thing that I've taken away from it is the fact that I have trust and confidence in the ability that my teammates can effectively work in just about any environment. We have a significant number of our people who work from home, and even though there's a pandemic going on, they're working from home and they're contributing in a way just like they were here. There's a quality of life element to it where as we come out of the pandemic and we move back into a more normal type of environment, we have the opportunity now, and I have trust and confidence that I can allow people to telework even after the pandemic. And that really makes a big difference to those individuals who spend 40 hours a week away from a family, where, hey, you know what, at lunch they can throw a load of laundry in, or right, put some food on for dinner or whatever. It really makes a difference. And if I can contribute in a positive way to make the workforce a better workforce just because of something simple as like that, what better way than to do that, right? So we're looking at every opportunity we can to make the organization a better, more effective organization, but also allow people to have a good quality of life, not have to trudge a 20-mile commute or whatever it is in the middle of the winter, right? Where we've got some options, and I think that's going to benefit us in the long run.
Yeah, I think so too. I'm optimistic, and I think that looking for the silver lining is something that we all have to do during these times. And one of the things I wanted to ask you was I read, and I believe this to be true, so correct me if I'm wrong, but you're kind of responsible for a $30 billion budget annually within the TACOM's department. Is that correct?
Yeah. It is.
And one of the things I wanted to ask you was, as someone who grew up, it sounds like kind of on the front lines and it was at the tip of the spear for a lot of their career, and now you find yourself, as all leaders do, having to manage things that maybe that they weren't, brought up in, and not to say that you don't know how to manage a $30 billion annual budget, but I very few people go to school to learn how to do that. So what have you had to do, and who have you had to surround yourself, and how have you managed, managing such a large and important budget? Because that's an astronomical number, and there's a lot that goes into that. So how have you taken your kind of front line, in the sand, in the dirt with the guys in the front line to kind of managing something from the back in such a big way, and how have you navigated that?
So fortunately for me, there's an incredible group of Army civilians who work at TACOM who really hold all of the, they're the smart people behind it all, right? They're the ones that have been working in these programs for decades, and it's really about trust, and it's my ability to trust the team that's here and their ability to assess and evaluate and give recommendations based off from their years of experience and their knowledge and education. So, for me, and this goes down to having trust with the guy to your left, to your right, when you're out on a tactical road march, you're doing a tactical operation, you have to build trust with your team. And here at TACOM, it's the same thing. It's having trust with those individuals who are also contributing to the very, very disciplined execution of a $30 billion budget. That's what it's all about,
Sure.
right?
Yeah.
Trust but verify, right? Isn't that the
That's
isn't,
right.
isn't that the move? One of the things I also read was that part of TACOM and part of kind of what's under your command is there's an R&D function as far as bringing new products to the Army. And what I was curious about is, in business there's a lot of R&D. I can speak for myself. It's a leg of our company that we're beginning to stand up much more aggressively. So how do you solicit feedback, and how do you really, how are you conceptualizing and coming up with the products of the future that our men and women in service need, and what's some of the philosophy behind that thinking?
So here at Detroit Arsenal, there's two separate R&D organizations that work with me, but I'm not responsible for. They're here at Detroit Arsenal, but they're part of our team, our collective team.
Sure.
And they have a chain of command that is different than my chain of command. But we are collectively, we work together as a team. So they are the ones that are really, one works for Army Futures Command, which is headquartered in Austin, Texas. It's called a cross-functional team, and it's focused on the next generation combat vehicle. And that organization works with the team here at TACOM. We have a relationship where we provide sustainment folks, logisticians, supply specialists, those types of individuals, to work with them to help figure out how are we going to, we've got an advanced piece of equipment, how are we going to sustain that advanced piece of equipment in the future? So that's the connection that we have. And we use that connection to ensure that we've got the capability to deliver the best product possible. And we do that with our cross-functional team. And then we have another group of folks here that are, another acronym, right?
There's a lot of them in the military.
It's not a good day if we don't have like 5 new acronyms every day. So the other element that's here is really a group of engineers. And what they do is they do all the engineering design and review and analysis, and they support us not only with new equipment, which they do an incredible job with, but they also support us on our legacy equipment. So that M1 Abrams tank that everybody knows, the first time you ever saw an M1 Abrams was back like in 1979, and we've had the basic same model since 1979 in the 80s. But if you look at the M1 Abrams today, it's a whole different tank. And the reason that, the reality of the whole different tank is that it's incrementally improved. There's elements of it that have been improved over the years, over and over and over again. And those engineers are the ones, they work here, and they're the ones, along with some of our industrial partners, have developed what we have now. So our relationship is just that. It's a relationship where we take advantage of the engineering work and we turn that into reality through the development of the specific components or repair parts or whatever it is they need to get to that new engineered design.
For people outside of the military, what's one thing you'd like people to better understand about our military and about the men and women serving our country? I think there's so much to be grateful for with all that you guys do, but I think that we don't often get enough time to speak one-on-one with the men and women serving our military. And what's something you'd like to tell people about the men and women serving to those of us who don't have the privilege of always speaking face-to-face?
Well, I would tell you first and foremost that when you see someone who's wearing the uniform of the United States, they're the same as you. Their circumstances are unique to them, just like everybody else's circumstances. But they're Americans. They have a love of country, and they have a reason to come into the military. And everybody has a different reason, whether it's a way to get out of the community that they're in because they're afraid that the community that they're in is going to take them in the wrong direction, or they're excited to support and defend the Constitution, or whatever the reason it is, they come into the military for one reason, and that is, at the end of the day, just like when I said when I was 18 it was to get into college, but it was also because I knew that my father served, my grandfather served, my brothers, my uncles, they all served. There is a way to give back to your nation. and to serve as a person in the military, that is an honorable way to do it. And I will tell you, I've met so many people and I've heard so many stories over my career, and it just to think back to some of the people who I've worked with and gotten to know, and to hear the stories about where they came from, and to be part of an organization that is so diverse in all ways, and is so welcoming to anybody, gender or race, or there is no organization, I think, in our country that is diverse as our military. We thrive in that. We recognize that in order to have the best solution, sometimes you have to have a diverse culture. It doesn't do much for you to just have a whole group of twins in a room to talk about an issue, right? Because you end up with the same solution all the time, and that gets old after a while. So it's really, really exciting to be able to go into a room and have a conversation with a group of people that come from all over, different universities, different states, different cultures, everything coming together and having points of view. And then back to what I said in the beginning, being able to listen to what they have to say. It's really, that's the thing, that when you see somebody in the military, acknowledge the fact that that's a group of individuals who come from a diverse organization, who could be from anywhere.
And you might have just answered it, but when you think about your career as you continue, serving our country, what's the legacy you'd like to leave, with your constituents and within the Army itself, within TACOM?
For me personally, I want to be known as someone who works hard and is kind, right? So those two things are the basics. Being able to look at an organization and deal with the multitudes of challenges, but considering everybody in the whole chain of command when you make decisions, and having a reputation for that. And it's hard work, right? It's hard work to have work hard and be kind. That's not easy, because there's always somebody pulling at you for all sorts of different reasons. And just kind of keep that as your center line in your journey, and staying on that. It's sometimes can be challenging, but staying on that center line, heading to that direction is where I want to go, and that's what I want to be able to have someone to say about me after I'm gone.
I think that's great. I wanted to ask you as well, one thing I always thought about the military is, there's a level of physical and mental fitness that comes with being in the military, and I think that's such an important part of maintaining, calm and collectiveness when you're having to make, big decisions, quick decisions. And, as I speak with more and more entrepreneurs, more and more artists, more and more business people, you're starting to hear the, kind of a common trend of really trying to align body, spirit, soul, and all of that. And so, what type of regiment, and I think the military probably, has some sort of, requirements for fitness, but how has that played into your life and your leadership and the ability to kind of always be on your game?
Well, I will tell you what, it's a challenge for even for people in the military. It's a challenge to really be able to stay at that level that you feel like you should always be. That physical and mental acuity where you really want it. It's a challenge for everybody. And of course, what I've discovered is as you age, you have to put more and more effort into that. Because, as a 20-year-old, I didn't really have to worry too much. But, every decade after 20, I've had to really, really hunker down. And I'm discovering that in the 50th decade that I'm in. It really is. It's a challenge, and you have to be dedicated to it, right? And again, there's all sorts of forces that are going to pull you off the track and get you off that center line where you want to head. But you have to fight those forces, and then most of them are just in your head, right? It's just your mental ability to focus and energize towards that. So I get a little help. I've got a captain who works with me, and he pulls me off and makes sure that I'm getting my my exercise that I need to get. I've got a sergeant major who really keeps me on my toes, making me think deep about things, and I've got a deputy commander here who's incredible. He's incredibly smart and capable, and he makes sure I don't stray off too far. So I fortunately have people around me. The
young guys in the are keeping you sharp.
That's right. That's right. They do. They keep you hopping.
That's right. And one final question that I had for you is: you look at kind of the storied history of our Army Command and our military. Who's a historical figure or present figure that you've always looked up to as someone who really exemplifies the leadership that you think the U.S. military really aims to embody? I know Patton's a big, historical figure, but that might just be for us in the history books. There might be someone, that you've really aspired to emulate.
So I can give you a couple, because there's not just one. Sure. If I had to pick a historical figure who I'd want to grab onto and emulate, it would be George Marshall. So George Marshall is a consummate American patriot. I mean, he clearly the love of his nation was set above all else. He served in the military for many years, and then went on to serve as a Secretary of State. And he just his history. If you haven't read anything about George Catlett Marshall, his history, his story is one where that everything he lived and breathed was about making the United States a better place, and he did over his time. But in those people that I've worked with, I have had such an honor to serve with some great leaders in my time. So there's a general out there by the name of General Perna. He's been in the news. He's worked with Operation Warp Speed, and he's been on the headlines. And if you haven't seen anything or heard anything from him, I will tell you, he makes me proud every day, and to have served with him has been an honor. What he has done for me is he's demonstrated exactly what it means to be an Army general. I can remember just a few weeks ago, things weren't going great with the distribution of the COVID vaccine, and he stood in front of the camera and he said, "I'm the guy to blame."
Extreme ownership, right? We need a little bit more of that.
Right, and reality is, if we sorted out all of the reality behind the truth behind it, he probably was to blame to some degree, but he took all of it. And he owned it.
That's so refreshing.
To see him do that and to acknowledge that there's a challenge, a problem out there. He's not gonna push it off on somebody. He is gonna fix it. He's gonna put his 100% of his effort into making it right. So that, to me, it raises him above a lot of other people.
Well, I think that that extreme ownership is something that I've always admired about the military, and admired about yourself and our whole armed forces. And I can't thank you enough for all that you do and all the men and women who serve for us. So it's been an extreme pleasure to have you on, and we look forward to meeting you in person sometime soon.
Absolutely.
And if you ever want to bring any of your command out to the farm, just about 40 miles north, we'd be more than happy to have you guys.
Well, that's great. Thanks so much, Andrew. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah.
And I hope everything goes well for you.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Have a great day. Thanks for tuning in, everyone. You can find Everything Borrowed on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. Show your support and drop a 5-star review to help more people find our channel. Don't forget to subscribe. Stay up to date with us on Facebook, Instagram, and everythingborrowedpodcast.com. EBP is produced by Chelsea Cox, Jason Brown, and Vox Adams. Edited and filmed by Nick Ferguson. Art is by Adam Yarborough. Everything Borrowed is an After Hours Media production. Copyright 2021.